what sets this industry apart isn't the model itself, it's the mission. Remove every unnecessary obstacle for the patient and build systems that make servanthood in healthcare repeatable. At the end of the day, healthcare isn't just about medicine, it's about people, and that includes the physician. You see, excellence in healthcare isn't just clinical skills anymore. Healthcare, from the patient's perspective, from my seat on the bus, is about dignity, attention, timeliness, and clear communication. Those aren't extras, they're expectations. That's why we see concierge medicine becoming the new reference point in healthcare. That's why you're seeing it more and more in the headlines, good or bad. It's what others are not are now looking up to. We see concierge medicine quickly becoming the new standard. And I'm encouraged by that news. The mission and the version of membership medicine model that now creates a space where patients want to keep coming back because they feel that energy, they feel that dignity, that attention, that time, and that true care that they've been wanting for so long. So, yeah, some of them are going to have smaller patient panels between 200 or 550 or 700 versus a traditional plan reimbursed model that has 2,500 or 5,000 or 7,000. Healthcare in these practices feels more personal and less transactional. It tells me that this industry, what you are doing, what these great doctors are doing, it's not just a fad. It's a long-term structural change in how healthcare could be and should be delivered. Fewer patients doesn't mean less care. It means more intentional care, longer careers for physicians, and patients who finally feel seen. Over the years, when we've asked experienced concierge medicine physicians, what's changed for them? They don't talk about the revenue or the time off. They talk about the joy that they experience in practicing medicine. These doctors are rediscovering their why again. They're rediscovering why they started, why they became a physician in the first place again, because they had lost it. And as one concierge medicine physician reminded us just last month at our industry conference, when doctors are fulfilled, the patient benefits too. You can't fake that kind of energy in an exam room. These models are raising the bar for satisfaction on both sides of the exam room. Doctors are staying in practice longer, and patients are reminded what it feels like to be genuinely cared for.
This podcast is produced by Concierge Medicine Today, LLC. All rights reserved. Concierge Medicine Today, or CMT, was founded in 2007 and serves as the industry's trade publication and annual medical conference organizer. Please note, the information shared on this podcast and across all CMT platforms is intended for general informational purposes only and may contain errors or omissions. Nothing in this podcast nor across CMT platforms constitutes medical, financial, legal, nor professional advice, and CMT is not liable for any inaccuracies. CMT encourages listeners to conduct their own research and consult trusted advisors before taking any action based on the content presented. No mention, interview, or link should be considered an endorsement. This content is primarily intended for a healthcare audience and may not apply to all listeners. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome back to the DocPreneur Leadership Podcast, where we talk about the business of medicine without the fluff, without the hype, and without pretending everything is fine in healthcare when clearly it's not. So today we're talking about a new national study that's been making headlines a little bit in late December from Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins, and Health Affairs. The big takeaway, though, is that they got was concierge medicine and its kind of sister or cousin model in membership or subscription-based healthcare delivery, direct primary care, didn't just grow, they exploded. And what they found was an 83% increase in practices in just 5 years. And I believe that the timing was from 2018 to 2023. And that's understandable, right? Because we all think, well, COVID, yeah. I mean, a lot of people were waiting for the shoe to drop during Obamacare, and then finally Obamacare came in, and then we got COVID years later. Um, that what they're saying is that that's not just growth, it's a stampede, and it deserves some, you know, rational headlines. But it's debatable there, in my opinion. Now, again, now before anyone grabs their pitchforks, their policy briefcases, or their Twitter megaphones, let's slow this all down and actually talk about what this um, new national study means, because the story isn't about luxury medicine. It's about survival. It's about burnout, and it's about broken incentives in healthcare. And it's also about physicians quietly voting with their feet. And yes, I promise to keep things interesting. No beige conference room energy today. So let's get this started. Now, here's what the research, I think, shows. Between 2018 and 2023, concierge and direct primary care practices, not the same, by the way. So if you don't know that, go do your homework, look at some other podcasts, look at Concierge Medicine Today, go to the Concierge Medicine Forum this October, go to conciergemedicineforum.com. But what they're saying is between 2018 and 2023, concierge and direct primary care practices, each separate models, grew by more than 80%. The number of clinicians, they said, working in these models grew almost the same amount. Corporate ownership increased dramatically. Advanced practice clinicians now make up a larger portion of these teams. And yes, smaller patient panels and membership fees are part of the models. Now, some people read that and immediately jump to the idea, well, this is making healthcare so much worse. It's a two-tier system. And right, we've heard this for the last 20, 30 years. But that reaction skips the most important question. Why? Why would thousands of physicians voluntarily walk away from the traditional plan reimbursed model? Why would thousands of physicians voluntarily walk away from the traditional system? Here's the uncomfortable answer, especially for your colleagues and peers, or for those who are curious about these models and haven't quite made the leap yet. You've said no for now, but not forever, so you're just kind of keeping one eye in the rearview mirror. Here's the uncomfortable answer. They're not running toward concierge medicine. They're not running toward direct primary care. They're running away from something that has become professionally unsustainable. And as you know, Medicare reimbursements have been flat or declining when adjusted for inflation. Prior authorizations now eat up hours each and every week. And burnout rates remain stubbornly high. Early retirement among physicians is accelerating. Where's that in the conversation, right? And more physicians are saying, I didn't go to medical school to become a highly trained insurance form completion specialist. That's not ideology. That's just reality. So I think what I'm hoping that you'll hear in some of our in this podcast today is that when critics say concierge medicine is pulling doctors away, what they're missing is that many of these doctors were already halfway out the door. The model doesn't create burnout, it interrupts it. It shines a mirror to just how broken the models and the systems out there in the traditional plan reimbursed systems are. And let's talk about workforce shortages for a second, because that's always the headline. Concierge medicine is worsening access. Here's the part that nobody likes to say out loud. The primary care shortage existed long before concierge medicine showed up to the party. It existed when doctors were seeing 30, 50 patients a day. It existed when doctors were scheduling their patients at midnight. It existed when paperwork exploded. It existed when reimbursements stopped matching cost. And concierge medicine didn't cause the shortage. It just held up a mirror to how bad things really are out there. Now, here's a bit of a plot twist. When physicians move into a smaller panel, right? When physicians move into these smaller panel models, many of them stay in practice longer, right? They don't retire early. I was just talking with one guy, one doctor who's still working 3 weeks a year, 3 weeks a month, he says, and is just living his best life as a concierge doctor. And he's in his 80s. So when physicians move into these smaller panel models, most of them practice longer. They don't retire as early as they thought, and they don't leave clinical medicine altogether. They don't burn out at 50 and become consultants. They keep caring for patients. I think that that matters, and that's the real story that's not getting shared. Now, let's talk about corporate ownership for a moment, because this part surprised even, I think, the researchers. Corporate affiliated concierge and DPC practices increased more than 500%. Translation: capital and venture capitalists have noticed. This is both an opportunity and cautionary tape. On one hand, scale can improve access, technology, and infrastructure. And on the other hand, if you turn relationship-based medicine, or as I would like to say, that concierge medicine is now evolved into meaningful medicine, you heard it here first. On the other hand, this type of scale is going to can improve access, technology, infrastructure. And on the other hand, if you turn this meaningful medicine or relationship-based medicine into volume-based membership churn, congratulations, you've just created the very thing physicians are trying or were trying to escape. Same hamster wheel, just a different name on the door and a different logo on the website. Now, about access and equity, important. Yes, membership medicine models serve fewer Medicaid and low income patients. That is true sometimes. But again, that's not a physician morality problem. That's a reimbursement design problem. And if policymakers want better access, the fix isn't restricting disruptive innovation. It's fixing payment models so primary care can actually survive. I'll read you what I thought was really interesting. It was a commentary from a physician on one of these stories, and I just found it so humorous that I thought I would read it to you if I can find it here just a second, because it was almost comical. It was from a doctor, and his wife had joined one of these practices, and he's like, "What's wrong with that? Like, these things are awesome." It was I I'm not able to find it, but I'll put it in the links in the show notes as well. But it was again, you have to laugh. If you don't laugh in healthcare, then maybe we're all doing something wrong. So all right, so back on target here. Give me a second to get my notes that I have for you here today, because we all are trying to do the best we can. All right, so back on target here. Let me find my notes. Where am I? Um, okay. We talked about access, equity, Medicaid, low-income patients, etc., and said, look, it's fixing payment models so that primary care can actually survive. Now, a quick pause for a moment, because this is all getting a little bit heavy, a little bit emotional, and maybe a little bit overwhelming. I think that this whole debate reminds me of some parenting logic. I'm a parent of 3 kids, and everyone outside on the outside of our family, right? Or your family as well, has strong opinions on certain things. But none of them are actually in your kitchen at 6:45 a.m. negotiating with a kid who suddenly doesn't like their cereal, even though that's the one they chose yesterday and ate cereal every day for the last 7 days. Healthcare policy sometimes works in the same way. There's a lot of opinions, but there's very little lived reality. And I think that that's the perspective in the seat that most of these stories about concierge medicine come from, is that there's a lot of opinions, but not much lived reality. So let's sprinkle in a little comedy energy here too, because nothing cuts through nonsense like dry Canadian realism, which I'm a Canadian and probably the last Canadian on the planet to think that things like concierge medicine and its other subscription-based healthcare delivery models like direct primary care are a good thing for healthcare and for patients like me. If a system keeps losing people, maybe, just maybe, the system needs fixing. I know that's shocking to some of you, but this study isn't an indictment of concierge medicine. It's a diagnostic test for traditional plan reimbursed primary care. And the result came back abnormal. And people don't like that. So why does all of this matter? Why are we talking about this today? Because it's just another story. Well, you're going to see it quoted in the next few years that, oh, it's exploded in its growth. And it's good to have some perspective when it comes up to talk about it. So why does this matter to you? Well, whether you're a physician, an administrator, an investor working in capital, venture capitalist, or a policymaker, or one of those naysayers out there, and there's more of those than there are the other. This is not a fringe model anymore. This is a structural shift in healthcare. When 80% growth happens in 5 years, that's not trend chasing, that's market correction. And I think that we ignore a lot of business ideas, business trends, business principles in healthcare. I've seen it, you've seen it, because, well, that's a good idea, but we don't do that around here. Or your training prevents you from seeing certain things. It gives you very narrow focus on the patient, which is amazing. It's your greatest strength, but in some cases, it's also a physician's greatest weakness. But what we have to understand is that why this matters is that doctors are redesigning their careers around sustainability. Patients are seeking access and relationship, and healthcare is being forced slowly and painfully, drip by drip, to confront the reality that volume-based healthcare delivery is cracking. And you can resist that reality because that's how we've always done it. Or you can choose to lead the way through it. I always say around here, look, it's no longer about being the best doctor for the world. It's about being the best doctor. I'm sorry, it's no longer about being the best doctor in the world. It's about being the best doctor for the world, for your patients, and for your local community. My mentor helped me get that over the past several years. And what I find is that, it's particularly in healthcare, leadership always starts with a certain amount of clarity. What are you actually for? Maybe you can answer that. Maybe you should have some other people answer that. Or are you for physician longevity? Are you for access that actually works? Are you for care that actually feels human? Because when we get this kind of clarity on that, the strategy gets easier for us to be in to work in a sustainable or maybe even unsustainable model. So here's my final thought on some of these stories recently and what you're going to hear so that you can have perspective. Concierge medicine, its other forms of healthcare, membership, subscription-based delivery models like direct primary care, these didn't create the pressure in healthcare. They revealed it. They didn't invent burnout. They exposed how bad it really is. And they aren't breaking the system. They showed us where it was already fractured and where it's continuing to grow bigger. And the real question isn't whether these models should exist or that they're growing exponentially or by 500 something percent, because I think that there's some industry experts that would probably say, where are they getting that? And I would probably be one of those too. And I've been in this space for 20 something years now. So the real question is whether you are brave enough to redesign healthcare so that doctors don't have to escape to survive it. If this episode made you think about stuff, share it with a colleague who's quietly asking some of their own hard questions about their future in healthcare. And if you're building something new in medicine, you're not alone and you're not crazy. Thank you for being and choosing to be the best doctor for the world. And if you're still filling out prior authorizations forms while you're listening to this late at night, we see you, we hear you, and we are for you. And you deserve a better path forward. Thanks for spending time with me today. I'm Michael, and this is the DocPreneur Leadership Podcast by Concierge Medicine Today, where we stay for doctors, for patients, and for building healthcare and models in a way that actually works. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, please go visit conciergemedicinetoday.org. Leave us a review. Hit that thumbs up button, as most of you, I'm sure your videos will always say. I'm one of them. And check out the Concierge Medicine Forum, the industry's annual medical education conference this October here in Atlanta. Go to conciergemedicineforum.com. I'll see you next week.